Mr. Goat, do you realize the last time Roger Federer beat Novak Djokovic? He was using this racket almost exactly 4 years down to the very day. Now, going back to the night before Wimbledon, many Joker fans out there, many people in general, Federer fans as well, told me that, well, Roger, of course, can't win this Wimbledon final against Djokovic because he hasn't beat him in almost 4 years. And while Roger Federer didn't end up getting this Wimbledon trophy despite having the 2 match points, getting this win tonight is not just consolation for Roger Federer after the epic loss to Novak Djokovic, but this has implications for the future because if we are so fortunate as tennis fans to have another opportunity where it's the night before the Wimbledon final and we know we're going to get another Federer-Djokovic match, we now have this match to look back on, and that is huge for the Roger Federer confidence department going into another big match, whether it be at the Australian Open, the US Open, heck, even the French Open, knowing that you have this victory over Djokovic. And this was not just any victory. This was much different than the win with this racket 4 years ago. Let me give you 3 big stats from today's tennis match at the ATP Finals. Number 1, Federer served so well that 1 out of every 4 serves he hit today was an ace. Think about that for a moment. Wrap your head around that. Number 2, Federer did so much magic on the first serve. Just take a look at this graphic. 14 unreturned serves in that first set. Serves that didn't come back as Roger Federer hit the GOAT box. That's what I call that section, the outer section of the service boxes. Those are the GOAT boxes because me, you, anyone, when you hit serves, as long as they're not, like 5 miles an hour, when you hit fast enough serves to those spots, you end up looking like a GOAT for the rest of that point. Guaranteed. Federer did so much magic on the first serve that he won 100% of his second serves in the first set against the greatest returner of all time. The first second serve point that Federer didn't win in his match against Djokovic today came after a string of 17 points won consecutively, and this first second serve Djokovic was able to win on was a double fault, which honestly today, that match pretty much seemed like the only way Djokovic could win a point against Roger Federer. And last but not least, this is the stat where Rafa Nadal comes in, sending a thank you to Roger Federer. For the last 16 years, the big 3 have finished year-end number 1 every single year except for one. Of course, that would be 2016 when Andy Murray, Mr. 4 of the Big 4, he got his 1 year-end number 1 during the decade and a half of Big 3 dominance. Now, thanks in large part to Roger Federer, we close this decade with a 3-way tie. 5 of those 15 years each held by Roger, Rafa, and Mr. Djokovic. So congratulations, Novak Djokovic, on an excellent 2019 season. It really was a remarkable season for Novak Djokovic. But it is over. It ends today. And for Roger Federer and the relentless Fed fans, we call them Fed heads here at Coffee Break Tennis, there is still one chapter left to write in this decade before we go on to 2020. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we talk about the matches coming tomorrow, but let's not fool ourselves. We mainly talk about all the incredible stats from Roger Federer's trip to Beatdown City with best friend and buddy pal, Novak Djokovic. That's the gist of the show. Cut the music. The intro is over. Let's go straight into it. Take a look at this graphic one more time. I want you to understand how incredible Roger Federer served. In fact, take a look at this tweet from Mr. 007. And I must remark, I served with Mr. 007, and you, sir, are no 007. Novak Djokovic was injured? Really? The whole week we heard nothing. We heard Rafa Nadal was injured. We didn't hear anything about Novak Djokovic being injured. In fact, we heard Novak Djokovic was playing his best tennis he'd played in quite a while after his incredible win in Paris. All of a sudden he's injured? Now, yes, Novak Djokovic was shaking his hand around. But notice, when did that stuff start to happen? After Roger Federer put it on the screen, had incredible serving. Look at this. This is as good as it gets. Nobody serves with this kind of accuracy. When you see the all-time great server numbers and stats, maybe you'll see a guy like a John Isner. Now, these guys, they hit spots too. They're great. But a lot of benefit of that high win on first serve percentage comes from just overwhelming pace. And don't get me wrong, overwhelming pace can be beat at the ATP Tour. All these guys are very skilled tennis players and can come up with some great returns. Even on a 140-mile-an-hour serve, if it's not in the right spot. But this kind of placement, we've never seen. I'd say there's only two people who have this kind of service placement. That would be Roger Federer and Pete Sampras. Maybe John McEnroe. Put John McEnroe in there. Those are your three best servers based on pure accuracy alone. Another special thing about this service day, and like I said, maybe, Djokovic shaking the hand, maybe something was bothering him a little, but if he was winning that match, I don't think you see him shaking the hand. And if Federer doesn't serve like that, I don't know that Federer wins the match like he does. Now, we got to point out, let's take a look at this. Roger Federer was able to get 71% of the Joker serves back. I can't remember. I don't have this written down if that is only for the first set or if that is the total number for the entire match. As we go through the stats more, maybe I have it written down somewhere else. But either way, Federer was getting a lot of Djokovic serves back, taking the ball pretty early, and was very good at the quick strike. One of the things I said, and what I must say was an excellent podcast here at Coffee Break Tennis last night, I said a thing we've seen, a negative trend for fans of Federer and Rafa Nadal, was that both have more unforced errors on their forehands than winners so far throughout the entire tournament after 2 matches played. Well, Roger Federer turned that around right away. His first set, 12 winners on 1 unforced error, came from the backhand. But like I said, and there was one point where Darren Cahill, he just said, you could hear in his voice. I mean, it was genuine shock, awe, amazement from, I think it was a cross-court backhand winner that Roger Federer hit on a Djokovic service game. Federer was so aggressive and so clean on the Djokovic return game when he was returning against Djokovic. And, of course, you see how he served. I mean, he didn't really have to play a whole lot on his serve because the first serving was so good. Like I said at the beginning of the show, 100% win on second serve. Sure, it's only 4 points, but that just goes to show you how incredible the first serving was today for Roger Federer. But like I was saying, as I pointed out in an excellent podcast last night, the bad news, of course, Federer, Nadal, more unforced errors and winners on the forehand, but looking pretty good on the one-handed backhand for Roger Federer throughout this tournament. Now he's played 3 matches, and like I was saying earlier, Darren Cahill, just amazed by some of the backhands Federer was able to hit. So we knew the backhand was pretty good, and that was his one unforced error, was only on a backhand. I believe the numbers on forehand were something like 4 forehand winners and 0 unforced errors on the forehand. Federer didn't always win the point outright with the forehand, but the forehand was always applying constant pressure on Novak Djokovic, and I think that's part of why we saw some double faults coming from Djokovic pretty early. Another special thing about Federer's service day, 123 miles an hour average on first serve. Now, we've seen numbers I can recall this tournament, 117, 118, I think Federer went up to in his next match against Berrettini. Average on first serve. Now, this was a first set number. You almost always, we saw it when Nadal comes out wanting to show, hey, I'm going to serve aggressive in this match. And then the number comes down on average by the time you finish the match. An incredible thing I noticed here is Federer's averaging 123 miles per hour on the first serve. That's a big number for him. He did it for the entire match. It was not just a one-set fluke. It was kind of incredible to hit that exact average for the entire match. Another thing interesting was Federer's numbers went up. The second serve, now Federer knew, all of us knew. As a big Fed fan, I'm watching the match thinking, okay, Djokovic is going to have some looks in the second set. And I think he only had 1 break point opportunity, actually, which Federer played an incredible point with a forehand buggy whip kind of falling away, forehand up the line, which led to a ball he could put away at the net. That's how he saved his break point. Djokovic did have his chance in that one moment. Maybe he would have been able to get back into the match had he broken back earlier before there was, of course, the second break to win the match, which how many Fed fans were not too thrilled thinking about, Federer's going to serve for a match against Djokovic for the first time since Wimbledon, when he, of course, failed. So that was nice of Roger Federer for the Fed fans to get that one, to get the break to win that set and not have to go through. Just imagine if Federer had got 40-15 double match point serving. That would have been nervy for everyone, even Federer a little bit. But Federer knowing, as all of us knew, that, okay, you're not going to serve that well in the first serve in the second set. And of course he didn't. The numbers came down a little. They were still incredible. I think first serve in percentage in the first set was 83%. First serve win percentage for Federer in the first set, 84%. Those numbers dropped a little in the second set. But one thing that went up was Roger Federer's second serve average speed. He goes from the mid-90s to 101 miles per hour. Federer knowing now that Djokovic is going to get more looks, I got to bring a little bit more on the second serve. And the fact that it's one thing to think this is what I have to do. It's another thing to execute perfectly. And let's see, what was the second serve win percentage? It went from 100% in the first set. You knew that wasn't going to happen again. To in the second set, 69% win on second serve and 81% win on first serve. Those are the match averages for Roger Federer. Those numbers against the greatest returner of all time in Djokovic, incredible. And those are your match stats. This date, November 14th, 2019, a day that will live on in the hearts and minds of Federer fans and tennis fans around the world for all time now. The only thing you could be disappointed as a Fed fan in this match that you didn't get the Federer finger wag after the win like you did at the French Open. Now, about tomorrow, there is one big question for me. Nadal, having such a epic comeback, a long, brutal match against Medvedev, will he play Tsitsipas tomorrow? No guarantee he's going to come out. I believe maybe it was 2012, Miami, semifinals. I had one ticket. I gambled, and I was really hoping that I would get the Murray-Nadal semifinal, and I got the ticket. I think I bought night session, and sure enough, it was night session. I'd been burned before where the good match was day session, and I had a night session ticket for like a semifinal in Miami one year. I think it was Berdych and Soderling, something like that. Lame, right? I had the ticket. I was there, and right before the show was going to go on, news came out that Rafa had pulled out of the match. Comment below if that's ever happened to you, because Rafa's done it numerous times on the World Tour, the ATP Tour. So will that happen again tomorrow with the ticket holders against Tsitsipas? Who is this? Monfils who comes out and plays Tsitsipas if Nadal does that? That's one question for me. And another question, of course, is can Federer continue playing like this? Because against Dominic Thiem, Federer said it best after his loss in the presser. He said, look, I wasn't completely outplayed by Dominic Thiem today. It was a competitive match, and honestly, I could have hit my spots better on the first serve, especially when I needed it most, meaning he could have at least forced a couple tie breaks. And honestly, if Federer had served against Dominic Thiem the way he did today, Federer did his job. He got his breaks in that match against Dominic Thiem. He was able to break the Thiem serve. He just wasn't able to hold his serve throughout the match. How in the world does Dominic Thiem break if Federer hits spots like that in that match? And as Federer said in his press conference today, they said, how did you swing so freely and play so well? Federer said, well, as the tournament goes on, you always tend to play and serve a little better. Absolutely true. Another thing I may point out from last night's brilliant podcast was I said, look, Federer is going to relish this opportunity because in Wimbledon, Federer feels like he has to win. It's a must-hold situation for his career. He wants to maintain the edge on Djokovic and Nadal in the Grand Slam count. He was playing for everything that day at Wimbledon earlier this year. Today, not so important. Yes, Federer doesn't want Djokovic to win, to have more year-end number ones than Federer, to have more World Tour or ATP Finals titles than Federer. Sure, but those records are kind of meaningless to Roger Federer in comparison to what the Wimbledon record is and to the Grand Slam record. So as I said last night, Roger Federer is going to really be excited. When he said, I'm excited for this match with Djokovic, I believe him. I believe he was excited to come out and swing freely, and boy, did he ever. Everything looked great. There was nothing you could complain about in Roger Federer's performance today. So the big question is, will Nadal play tomorrow? Is he able to beat Tsitsipas? Do we get to see Federer versus Nadal? That would be awesome. And can Federer play like that again? Can he serve that way again? Because I think he wins the tournament for sure if he keeps serving even close to that good. Nobody here is going to be able to stop Federer and bring in I think if he win 1,300 points going into next year, which is nice GOAT insurance because he can have some disappointing results. He can maybe not win Miami. He can skip Miami. Maybe he skips the French Open. He still goes in with a 1, 2, or 3 seed, depending on how the year goes, if he wins his tournament by the time we get to Wimbledon next year. So that's very important for Roger Federer, obviously. But with that said, I don't think Federer has to win this tournament. I think he can lose in the semifinals now. And his big takeaway from here is he shows that he can still beat Novak Djokovic even as he gets close to 40 years. Or he's 38 now, 2 years away from being 40, less than 2 years from being 40. He goes away from this match knowing that, and imagine if he was able to beat Rafa here too, but he doesn't have to do that. He got a win over Rafa at Wimbledon. He goes to the Australian Open, a court that plays closer to this World Tour Finals court than any of the 4 majors. He goes to the Australian Open with this victory, even if he doesn't win the tournament, and that you cannot say too much about how great that is. All right, so last thing before we get out of here, a couple predictions tomorrow. Tomorrow, put the standings on the screen. We do have a weird 3-way tie for second in the Rafa Nadal group tomorrow, depending on the outcomes of the matches. Tsitsipas is qualified for sure. He's going to semifinal Saturday here. But if both Nadal and Sasha Zverev lose tomorrow, we have a strange situation that only happens here where all of the guys have won one match and lost 2 matches, yet still have a shot to go to the semifinals of a huge ATP tournament. How weird is that? 1 win and 2 losses, and you got a shot to get in, and then it comes down to a tiebreaker. I believe the way it goes is if Zverev and Nadal both lose in straight sets tomorrow, or if Monfils comes in and say he loses in straight sets, I don't know if it matters at that point. Then I think Medvedev actually makes his way in. If Sasha wins in 3 sets and Nadal wins in 3 sets, I think Sasha moves on. If Nadal wins in straight sets and Sasha wins or loses, wins in 3 or loses, I think Nadal moves on. And if Nadal and Sasha Zverev both win in 3 sets, then it gets really tricky. And maybe in that scenario, Sasha Zverev gets it because he's lost 1 less set than Nadal in total, something like that, maybe. So good luck sorting that mess out. The main thing for Federer fans is that Federer is through. And like I said, does it even matter what happens from here on out? He got his big win. He defied all the odds where everyone thought Djokovic was going to win today. And he goes into Grand Slams next year, possibly knowing I got that win in my back pocket last time. I know I can do it. If we're at Wimbledon, if we're at the Australian Open final and Federer is about to play Djokovic or Nadal, I got the win over Nadal at Wimbledon last time. I got the win over Djokovic at the World Tour Finals when everyone doubted me. I know I can come up with some crazy serving and find a way to win here, and that helps him swing just a little bit freer. Hey, but if you don't believe me, take it straight from Mr. GOAT himself. Mr. Roger Federer, not the talking tennis cat, Mr. GOAT. Take a listen. Federer daydreaming about how great of a win it was over Djokovic and the implications for next year at a major final, perhaps when he's asked this question and caught off guard.
You're into the semifinals. How much are you looking forward to the weekend?
Excuse me?
How much are you looking forward to the weekend?
A lot. I'm happy to stick around. Didn't have any plans yet, so just gonna take it easy and enjoy the city and the food and everything, and then I'll come over here to the O2 and battle it out in the semis. Hopefully go a step further than I did last year. I played a good match against Zverev last year, but he was unreal last year, so that was tough. I don't think we know who I play, so I'll watch some tomorrow and get ready, and then hopefully play some great tennis in the weekend. I would love it.
Well done, Roger Federer.
All right, thank you guys. Thanks for coming.
The weekend? The Wochenende. Come on, lady. Hit the music because we're getting out of here. Thanks for watching Coffee Break Tennis. Tomorrow is Freitag, and I have to teach a tennis lesson unless it rains again. Very likely we'll do a video, and it looks like there's going to be more rain and terrible weather here in Atlanta. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. If not a video tomorrow, a late night podcast to look out for. Hey, it might even be a Patron Saints podcast only. I haven't made up my mind yet because this is such a big moment. But either way, you'll see us here tomorrow night, maybe early, maybe super late. Doesn't matter. All is well here. See ya!
Stefanos, last year used to hear by us, and you told us.
Just call me Stefanos.
Sorry.